When I was 18, Niccolo stormed into my house and stabbed my father 18 times. As the police dragged him away, he stared into the cameras and smiled. Why would I regret it? From now on, no beast will hide behind the name of family to hurt her. Maureen is free. Years later, when he was released from prison, I had nothing, no money, no prospects, nothing. He plunged into the ruthless circles of the capital, clawing his way up until everyone knew him as President Morales. After we married, every password of his was set to my birthday. Yet as I scrolled through his photo albums, all I saw were pictures of another woman, thousands of them, not a single one of me. Only then did he seem to notice. Without a word, he deleted every photo, tossed his phone aside, and said flatly, "It's all in the past. Pretend you never saw it." I slid the divorce papers across the table, my voice icy. "Sign it." He dropped the pen, squinting at me. "I told you before, there is no divorce between us. Only death." Niccolo didn't sign. Between us, there was only widowhood, never divorce. Those had been his exact words on our wedding day. He didn't even glance at the papers before slamming the door. Soon after, a voice message came from an unfamiliar number. "You must be Maureen. You should have seen it by now. He's been saving my photos since I was in school. Nico loves me, not you. Step aside, or you'll regret it." Her voice was young, naive, untouched, or perhaps Niccolo had shielded her from the world too well. Before I could respond, photos started flooding my phone. Her figure was flawless, a delicate chain glinting against her waist. That hand, the one that sometimes forgot our wedding ring, lay across her bare skin. When her belly began to swell, the chain vanished. "Maureen, you've been married to Nico for 3 years and never bore his child. But he let me. Don't you get it? Let go, or I'll move into your home myself. Let's see whose side Nico chooses, yours or mine." When Niccolo returned, he found shattered glass scattered across the floor and me standing there with a phone in hand. He raised a brow. "Nothing to say?" My ragged breaths mingled with the cigar smoke curling in the room. He chuckled softly, exhaling a smoke ring. "She's just a girl. Why stoop to her level?" "Yes, young and foolish," I said, tossing a medical report onto the table. His body stiffened. "She was pregnant," I said flatly. "So, I taught her a lesson, made her grow up." "Maureen." He grabbed my shoulders so hard I thought my bones would snap, pressing me against the wall. I curled my lips, savoring the fury in his eyes. In my lifetime, he'd only bled anger twice. Once in our final year of high school, when he saw my father dragging me half-naked into the street, trying to drown me. That was the night he stabbed my father 18 times. The second time was now, over a girl's miscarriage. He shook me violently, demanding to know my cruelty. "How rare," I sneered, "to see President Morales lose control." "You're a woman too. How could you do this?" he thundered. "You said it yourself," I whispered, stepping closer. "Between us, there is no divorce. Only death. If you won't kill me, I'll kill you both." Blood dripped to the floor. He finally noticed the cuts on my hand from smashing the glass. His grip slackened. "Good," he murmured. "I didn't want that child anyway." He took my hand, gently wiping away the blood. When he dabbed iodine on the wounds, he blew softly, just as he had years ago when I returned home bruised from my father's beatings. Back then, he had only alcohol to clean my wounds, but he had always blown gently, as if it could ease the sting. Even now, with proper medicine, he was careful, still afraid of hurting me. I struck his face with my bloodied palm. "Enough. It's filthy." He tilted his head, not asking whether I meant the blood or him. Instead, he called Uncle Johnson, the butler, and handed him the medical kit. The girl's name was Riza. When I tried to dig into her past, I found nothing. Niccolo had erased every trace of her. If I hadn't acted quickly, I wouldn't have even known her name. I confronted him. "So you care about her that much? You've hidden every detail from me?" He sighed. "Maureen, what's the point of holding on to this?" I slammed the divorce papers in front of him again. "Sign it, and I'll finally have a reason to let go." The papers barely lasted 2 seconds in his hands before he tore them to shreds, scattering the fragments across the floor with a flick of his wrist. "I told you, between us, there's no divorce. Only death." I laughed. The next moment, a bottle smashed against his head. Dark liquid ran down his face. I couldn't tell if it was wine or blood. I grabbed a knife from the table and lunged. He caught my wrist mid-strike, locking us in a deadly standoff. Niccolo, I whispered, our faces barely an inch apart. Do you really think I won't do it? Our hands trembled, neither yielding. Divorce, I hissed, or one of us dies tonight. The stalemate lasted only seconds. Then, with a soft laugh, he shifted, guiding the blade into himself. Pinned by his grip, I watched the knife sink deep into his shoulder. Blood splattered across my face. I told you, he whispered hoarsely, I won't let you die before me. Niccolo. Grinding my teeth, I yanked the knife free. He groaned, blood soaking us both, yet when he looked at me, his eyes held the same unwavering tenderness I remembered from years ago. The metallic scent of blood dragged me back to that rain-soaked night in our final year of high school when my father had beaten me in the street. I had collapsed, and it was Niccolo who had caught me, shielding me with his own body. Don't be afraid. It's okay. I'm here. Even as bottles, chairs, and knives rained around him, he had grinned through the pain and said the same words. We had embraced in blood, kissed in the storm. But when love rots to its core, betrayal becomes monstrous. I shoved him away. Don't touch me. Stumbling, I left that blood-soaked room behind. For a while, we lived apart in tense silence. He still guarded the girl so carefully that I couldn't find a single trace of her. But youth is impatient. Eventually, Riza came to me herself. Looking for him lately? Save yourself the trouble, he's with me. Dressed in haute couture, her expression smug, she added. You thought losing my child solved everything? She leaned closer, a smirk curling her lips. As long as his love belongs to me, it doesn't matter how many children I lose. In fact, he's been trying even harder lately. Thanks, sister, for helping me. Her plunging blouse revealed a flawless neck and the swell of her chest, marred with kiss marks, a testament to how completely Niccolo had adored her. She pressed a hand to her still flat belly, pride radiating. Too bad. I'm pregnant again. I calmly sipped my coffee as she made herself comfortable on my sofa, resting her chin in her hands. They say you've been married 3 years and still haven't given him a child. The one time you did, she chuckled. Ha, you couldn't even keep it. Sometimes, you really can't blame men. The crisp clink of porcelain on wood echoed in the room, followed by her scream. Bodyguards stared silently as Riza writhed on the floor, clutching her stomach as blood pooled beneath her. Maureen, you'll pay for this. Her shrieks filled the air as the guards dragged her away. You're not afraid of Nico's revenge? My fingers tapped lightly on the marble tabletop, my voice calm and steady. You should know, becoming Mrs. Morales isn't about a man's love. That alone will never be enough. That night, Niccolo returned home, with dozens of men. They filled the entire floor of the estate. He never displayed such force unless facing a formidable rival. But this was the first time he had turned his blade on me. We sat at opposite ends of the negotiation table, each flanked by rows of silent men. Twice now, he said, his slender fingers tapping lightly against the marble. The sound was sharp in the silence. Maureen, you owe her an apology, he spat coldly. I laughed, sarcastic. Anyone foolish enough to walk into a lion's den should be ready to face the consequences of her recklessness. Half of his face was swallowed in shadow, his expression unreadable. Does President Morales really think his wife is so submissive that she'll do nothing when a mistress comes knocking? The lighter flared in the dark. I lit the slim cigarette between my lips, smoke curling upward. Niccolo, remember, every bloody step you clawed your way up, I bled with you. And now you want to pit a pampered little canary against me? Is it you who has gone mad, or her? I slid the divorce papers across the table again, blowing a slow ring of smoke. This is your last chance. Moonlight spilled over the marble, but revealed nothing of our faces. We stared through the shadows. From childhood, you were the one who killed the beast that was my father. You stormed into powerful households for me, I said. And I lost a child for you. I bled myself dry for you. Niccolo, it's time we cut ties clean. No debts left between us. That's the best ending for both of us. The best ending, his low laugh echoed through the darkness. He picked up the divorce papers. With a flick of his lighter, the paper caught fire, curling into ash before my eyes. She won't appear in front of you again. The ashes scattered as he rose, leading his men out in a sweeping tide. A sharp pain stabbed my lower abdomen. I bent forward, clutching myself. My attendants rushed to my side. Miss Maureen, I'm fine, I whispered faintly. Just the old problem. Ever since losing that child, the cramps returned whenever it rained. Not even the best gynecologists could fix it. Perhaps it wasn't just the body that hurt, perhaps the heart made it worse. This time, the pain was unbearable, and I went to the hospital. There I walked straight into a storm. Rizza was in the ward, sobbing and screaming. Why didn't you kill her? That bitch is nothing. Crushing her should be effortless. I want her dead. If you won't do it, I'll kill her myself. She grabbed a dagger, ready to strike. Niccolo seized her wrist with brutal force. The blade cut into his palm, blood welling instantly. Rizza collapsed into his arms, weeping. With his bleeding hand, he cupped her face. Her tearful eyes met his, and then their mouths crushed together in a fierce kiss. The dagger clattered to the floor. The room was filled with the sound of their breath, their intimacy, their entanglement. Once, Niccolo and I had embraced in blood. Now, Rizza kissed him in blood. The door opened. She saw me. Maureen. The dagger was snatched up in an instant, then clattered back to the floor. I grabbed a handful of her tangled hair, forcing Rizza to her knees. Niccolo seized my wrist. Enough. Stop stooping to her level. I sneered, staring straight into his eyes. Mr. Morales, you're the one who refuses divorce. Since you insist on recognizing me as your wife, I will live up to that title. Or, do you think your wife is just some pitiful doormat anyone can bully? Smack. My palm struck Rizza's face with force. Maureen. Niccolo's furious shout split the air. He tore me away from her as her sobs echoed, weak and pitiful. I wrenched free from his grip. I gave you a chance. Since you refuse divorce, don't blame me for what comes next. Suddenly, a sharp pain lanced through my waist. Almost instinctively, I spun and kicked Rizza squarely under the chin. She slammed against the wall, the dagger she had hidden flying from her hand. Ah, she cried, clutching her stomach, blood seeping from a body not yet healed. Attacking me? You're courting death. I snarled, raising my hand again. But the sting that followed wasn't hers, it was mine. Niccolo loomed above me, his eyes burning with a cold fury I had never seen before. My fingertips brushed the corner of my lips and came away smeared with blood. Don't be afraid. It's all right. I'm here, he whispered. He pulled Rizza into his arms, letting her tears soak his expensive shirt. The tenderness, the urgency in his gaze, I had only seen it once before, the day I lost our child. That sunset had been stained with blood. He had clutched my hand to his chest, forcing a smile through his own tears, stroking my face, repeating, "Don't be afraid. It's all right. I'm here." But now, when his eyes turned on me, there was only ice. If it's divorce you want, then we'll divorce. A sharp, bitter laugh escaped me. So this was it. A divorce I couldn't win, even with death as leverage. Yet the moment Rizza bled, it became possible. Pain tore through my lower abdomen, sharper than the day I miscarried. I bent over, clutching myself, as Niccolo's shoulder brushed mine. He carried Rizza away, without a backward glance. I collapsed to my knees. Bodyguards rushed in. Before I lost consciousness, someone shoved a divorce agreement into my hand. Men could be ruthless, swift, and merciless when they chose to act. I shoved the papers back at the bodyguard. Burn it. I had always been stubborn. As a child, my father threatened to beat me to death if I disobeyed. I had stiffened my neck and courted death anyway. As an adult, I had sworn to live and die with Niccolo. 8 months pregnant, I had stormed into a rival's den, machete in hand, to save him. And now? I had said it before, the last divorce negotiation was his only chance. He refused. From that moment on, my marriage had only 2 outcomes: widowhood or nothing at all. When I woke, Rizza had been discharged, safe. This time, she sent over a file. The bodyguard handed me her handwritten letter. Her delicate script carried smug arrogance with every stroke. Did you really think Nico still had feelings for you? Are you curious why he loves me and not you? You probably don't even know who I am yet, do you? Well, I've got a surprise for you. I tore open the file, my breath hitching. I had never signed the divorce papers. But Niccolo and Rizza's wedding was already set. On a private island in the Pacific, he had spared no expense to give her paradise, his most extravagant, yet ironically cheapest, bridal gift. The ceremony itself mocked everything we once had. The Sodecan pull-tab ring that had once symbolized his devotion to me became her dazzling Harry Winston diamond. The faded mosquito net veil I had worn was replaced by her glittering couture gown, studded with shards of light. To outsiders, it was assumed Niccolo and I had shared some secret grand wedding. The truth? After swearing our vows in a rented apartment, the next 7 years were spent running through storms of blood and betrayal. We never got the chance to declare our happiness to the world. Ladies and gentlemen, Niccolo took the microphone himself, unwilling to let anyone else narrate this moment of joy. Today, I want to introduce to you the only pearl of my heart, my
Bang!
The doors burst open. Guests screamed as my people stormed the venue, taking control with ruthless efficiency. A chandelier crashed, nearly crushing Riza, who shrieked as Niccolo pulled her into his arms protectively. His eyes widened in shock. You actually followed us here? Did you think it would be difficult to track you down? I scoffed, tossing a recorder at his feet, a mocking smile on my lips. So, this is how deep your schemes run, Mr. Morales. The wedding march abruptly cut off. From the speakers came the sound of Riza's breathless moans. Nico, all these years, you really held back from having a child with that old hag? Niccolo's voice, rough with desire, answered, I don't have the habit of sleeping with other women. Liar. You think I'm 3 years old. Her laugh was followed by a soft slap. Tell me the truth. A satisfied sigh, then his voice again, mingled with kisses. She's filthy. Niccolo's brow furrowed, but the recording played on. Come on, Riza teased. Your wife has been with you all these years. Could she really have had someone else? Of course not, his voice replied. But when she was 8 months pregnant, she barged into our enemy's den. She miscarried right after. How would I know if it wasn't their violation that killed my son? Maybe she wasn't touched at all, Niccolo said bitterly. I read their statements. They admitted they wanted to violate her. No woman could resist in that situation. Riza gasped theatrically. Heavens! So your wife, 8 months pregnant, threw herself to the wolves? What a shameless whore. Enough! Niccolo turned toward the sound booth, ready to cut the feed, only to freeze. The control panel was manned entirely by strangers. Half the room was filled with unfamiliar faces. Riza's complexion drained. What she thought were allies were clearly not. Step by step, I walked toward the stage. I had done this before, dragging a machete, leading 10 men ready to die, cutting through waves of enemies to reach him. One by one, they fell, until only I remained against his foe. That day, he kicked me in the stomach. I carved my blade into his enemy's throat. The sun bled into the horizon as Niccolo dropped to his knees beside my stretcher, crying for the first time. For years after, he held me tight, trembling, whispering apologies. In the dead of night, he locked himself in his study, chain-smoking in the dark. I thought it was guilt that tormented him. I comforted him, saying I never blamed him. But perhaps it was never about whether he had wronged me. Perhaps, in his heart, it was always about whether I had wronged him. From the speakers, his voice went on. Of course, maybe she really is innocent. But I checked her medical report in secret. She can't bear children anymore. She's useless.
Bang!
A gunshot shattered the speaker. Niccolo stood frozen, gasping, his hand clutching the pistol, trembling uncontrollably. Niccolo. Step by step, I closed in on him. Do you think those words were slander? Or are you simply too afraid to face your own filth?
Mao.
He hadn't finished saying my name before my hand clamped around his throat. Nico. Riza shrieked, trying to rush forward, but one of my men pressed the barrel of a gun against the back of her head. I advanced, he retreated. Those 10 brothers, they followed me from the very beginning, when we first entered this world. They died on the road, trying to save you. Do you know what it felt like, standing before their parents' tear-filled eyes when they asked where their sons had gone? Niccolo's atoms apple-bobbed. His gaze, conflicted, settled on me. I smiled through tears. I never told you any of this. I was afraid the blood I shed for you would become your guilt, your burden. But all these years, you never thought about how many men I lost that day. You only wondered if I had betrayed you. With a violent shove, I slammed him into the wall. The hook jutting from it tore into his old wound, blood soaking his collar and staining my hands. Nico! Riza cried again. His gaze shifted to her, gentle, tender, without a trace of fear. Perhaps I misunderstood you, he whispered. But, Maureen, I really love children. I've dreamed of having a child with you, a happy family of 3. I swear I'd be a good father. I'd never let him suffer, as you once did. It would be like living life over again. Our regrets wiped away in the next generation. I stared at him, then pulled out a medical record and held it before his eyes. But you, my voice cracked, you killed your own child with your own hands. The miscarriage had occurred the same day he had asked me for a divorce. His bloody fingerprints sealed the page. You thought I went to the hospital that day to confront your little mistress? I closed my eyes briefly.
No.
That day, I was already showing signs of miscarriage. My body was finally strong again. That child was hard won. But then you pushed me, and our baby was gone forever. His brows furrowed. There was no regret, no shock. Only calm resignation. He let the paper slip from his fingers, his voice as light as dust. Then let's divorce. End things peacefully. That's the best outcome for us.
Bang.
The butt of his gun smashed against his forehead. I tore the weapon from his grasp, spun it in my bloodied hand, and pressed the muzzle against his jaw. I smiled, blood smeared across my face. After all these years, you still don't understand me? I told you, I gave you your last chance. Between us, there is no divorce. Only death. And now you talk of the best outcome? Too late. His hand gripped mine weakly, trembling. The wound on his shoulder sapped his strength. Slowly, he released me. And then, with the same gentle smile from his youth, he said, "Fine.
Kill me, then."
The gun nearly bent under my grip. I had dragged him here, forced him into this fight, desperate for answers. To understand why he betrayed me. To give some meaning to the 10 wasted years of my life. But the truth was crueler than any blade. Sometimes, the death of love wasn't in the screaming battles or blood-soaked betrayals. It was one lover ripping themselves open in agony, while the other would rather die than waste another breath explaining. And all of it was because of another woman, a latecomer, someone who had never bled for him. I slid the bullet into the chamber. My cold voice rang out against Rizza's hysterical sobs. "If that's how it is, then I'll grant your wish."
No.
Niccolo.
Bang.
The gunshot rang out, but not from my weapon. Behind us, the bodyguard holding Rizza at gunpoint dropped, clutching his bleeding arm and writhing in pain. Her eyes lit up. Reinforcements. It was clear Niccolo had intended to give Rizza a fairy tale wedding. The bodyguards had wasted time navigating the pink, extravagant decorations he had prepared for her. By the time they reached me, the air was charged with tension, sharp as drawn blades. With Niccolo backing her, Rizza grew arrogant, her voice dripping with malice. "Do you know why Niccolo wasn't the least bit surprised when you miscarried?" "Shut up." Niccolo's roar cut through the air, startling her into silence. He blocked his men from striking me, his palm pressed tightly to his blood-soaked shoulder. Despite the crimson spilling down, he looked at me with a gentle, warm smile, like a spring breeze from our youth. "Enough. You should leave. I promise no one will stop you. Once you return home, nothing here will be used against you." I latched onto his words. "So this is just armed coercion? You want me to step aside and let your wedding proceed?" I snickered. "Sorry, Mr. Morales. I've never been in the habit of being cheated on." Niccolo sank to one knee, blood pooling beneath him. His men scrambled to dress and disinfect his wound with frantic precision, terrified of him losing another drop. "Forget it," he said quietly. "This was never meant to anger you. But since you already know..." He raised a hand. One of the bodyguards stripped the groom's suit from him and tossed it into the blood. "Then the wedding is cancelled." His words fell heavy, but before silence could settle, Rizza erupted. "Maureen, you bitch. Do you really think he has feelings for you? Think carefully. What was the name of the man who kidnapped him back then?" "I MMPH. "Shut her up," Niccolo commanded. At once, his men clamped a hand over her mouth. But my gun was already pressed to the side of her head, freezing everyone in place. Rizza seized the chance to shove the hand away, her voice shrill with defiance. "I am his daughter." "His daughter? The daughter of the man who kidnapped Niccolo years ago? You really thought Nico was kidnapped?" She spat, eyes gleaming with venom. "Ridiculous. Do you think he would ever let himself fall into such a position? That whole thing was aimed at you. Those men who wanted to violate you. He knew about them from the start. You stupid bitch, did you really think he loved you?"
Bang.
The butt of my gun slammed against her head. She screamed, clutching her forehead, but I ignored her. My gaze stayed locked on Niccolo. "Nothing to say?" I expected denial, excuses, anything. But all he gave me was a weary sigh. Back then, I had my reasons. For so long, I had believed Niccolo and I were unbreakable. But in his calm resignation and in Riz's hysteria, the truth unraveled. Yes, at first, he had braved the capital's ruthless circles for me. I had fought at his side, and he thought it was happiness. But then he realized something else. I was decisive and ruthless. Sometimes it was my connections that broke down barriers, not his. To a man, love was precious, but ambition was everything. When your lover begins to outshine you in the eyes of the powerful, she ceases to be a partner. She becomes a rival. And how do you ensure your rival never outpaces you? Destroy her reputation. Tarnish her purity. Make sure she has no one to rely on but you. When he staged that kidnapping, he had already decided there would be no child between us. He loved me, but he also feared and despised me. Even if he had been the one to taint me, I was still tainted in his eyes. He mistrusted me, feared me, and yet he had loved me. That was why he never divorced me. That was why, in those endless nights alone in his study, he wasn't just questioning my loyalty. He was plotting how to keep me under his control. And Riza, the daughter of his former strategic partner, he felt guilty toward her, so he compensated in every way. She was different from me, untainted, devoted, pure. I laughed through tears. Niccolo, after I rescued you that day, what did you really think? His eyes dropped. I'm sorry. Are you? I raised my gun to his head, rage burning so hot it steadied my hand. Then go to hell.
Bang.
The gun barrel shifted at the last second, and he grabbed my wrist. Riz's shrill scream pierced the air. Stop it. Maureen, you bitch. The bodyguards clashed, fists and steel colliding in chaotic fury. Niccolo and I locked eyes, each movement charged with unspoken history. He knocked the gun from my hand. I wrapped my fingers around his throat. I dragged a blade across the scar he had once earned protecting me. He struck at the wound he had once left on me. Blood sprayed, speckling both our faces. We fought until his stitches tore open, until my strength ran dry. Only then did we collapse together onto the ground. Riza shrank into a corner, trembling, terror etched across her face. Through ragged breaths, Niccolo was the first to rise. He lunged for the dagger, but his boots sent it flying. Instead, he pulled me into his arms, pressing me against the wall. The medical kit meant for him was now used on me. Alcohol stung my wounds, and he blew gently across them, his breath a strange mix of tenderness and danger. Gauze wrapped snugly around my arm, but I turned my face away. Maureen, his lashes clung with beads of blood, his lowered eyes carrying a dangerous, familiar allure. How did we end up here? The sting burned again as he bent down, blowing over the wound like he once had years ago. No iodine, just bear with it, he whispered. Bear with it. For a moment, I could have believed I was 18 again, wounded by my father, comforted by the boy who tended me. Back then, he had whispered, just a little longer, Maureen. I'll take you somewhere no one can hurt you again, even if it costs me my life. But now, that boy had grown into a man, still treating my wounds, yet every wound I bore had been caused by him. Niccolo, I said coldly, do you know your reproductive system is actually impaired? His hand froze. I laughed bitterly. Our 2 children were probably the only chance you'll ever have at fatherhood. His brow furrowed. What are you talking about? The medical report was fake. My eyes locked on his. I never wanted to strip you of your pride. I was never the problem. The cotton swab snapped in his grip. I stood and glanced toward Rizzo in the corner. So tell me, those 2 pregnancies of hers, were they really yours? Niccolo fell silent. I turned, walking away step by step. I'm tired, Niccolo. I won't keep fighting with you. I left not because I was running, but because I knew him. He wouldn't resist investigating. And when he did, he would uncover his true medical records, and the man Rizzo really loved. It didn't take long. A video appeared on my phone. Rizzo was dragged by her hair to the riverbank, hands bound behind her back. The love in her eyes for Niccolo was gone, replaced with hatred. Like I could ever love you. If it weren't for your stupidity, my father wouldn't have died at that whore's hands. I thought you rose on your own merit, but no, you were just afraid of your own wife. Coward. Useless fool. Niccolo merely lifted a hand. His men hurled her into the river. The torrential rain mirrored that night when we were 18. Once more, he dialed the number he had called countless times before. Blocked again. He tapped the screen, then flung the phone aside. Turning, he glanced at the camera still recording. Rain streaked down his face. For a fleeting moment, he looked like the boy I once knew. He gave the lens a pale, bitter smile. When everyone left, he walked alone toward the raging river. Step by step, into the flood. The waters swallowed him whole, swallowed the boy I once loved. Later, the police recovered his phone. The last message he sent was made public. Maureen, I'm sorry. I stood at the river's edge, umbrella in hand, watching his men place offerings to honor him. Then I turned silently away. Not by divorce, but by widowhood.